Hello there, and welcome to Whispers of Science, where mysteries unfold softly and discovery takes the gentle path toward understanding. Tonight, we're embarking on a quiet journey into the very essence of what makes you uniquely you, a story written in a language older than words themselves, hidden within every cell of your body. It's a tale of dark codes and secret instructions, of evolutionary whispers and genetic shadows that shape not just how you look, but how you think, feel, and perhaps even dream. Before we dive into these molecular depths, I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from tonight and what draws you to the mysteries hidden within your own biology fitting. Isn't it a video about the secrets in your genes? And here we are, scattered across the globe, each of us carrying our own unique genetic manuscript written in the same four-letter alphabet, but telling completely different stories. If you find this exploration soothing, intriguing, or perhaps a little unsettling in the most wonderful way, I'd be ever so grateful if you gave the video a gentle thumbs up and maybe subscribed it. Helps this quiet corner of curiosity reach others who might be drawn to the softer side of scientific wonder. Now, I do hope this isn't so captivating that it keeps you awake, but if it does well, at least you'll drift off, knowing a little more about the extraordinary library contained within your very own cells. So settle in, take a deep breath, and let's begin to decode the whispers written in your DNA, because somewhere between the familiar and the unknown, between what we think we know about ourselves and what science is just beginning to reveal, lies a story more intricate and mysterious than any fairy tale ever told. Your DNA is not just an instruction manual, it's a historical record, a love letter from your ancestors, and perhaps most intriguingly, a collection of secrets that your body keeps even from you. Imagine for a moment that you could shrink down small enough to slip inside one of your cells, past the busy machinery of proteins and organelles, until you reach the nucleus, that quiet command center where your genetic code resides there, coiled and twisted like the world's most elaborate origami. You'd find nearly 3 billion base pairs of DNA stretched out. It would measure about 6 feet long, yet somehow it fits comfortably inside a space smaller than the period at the end of this sentence. But here's where our story takes an unexpected turn. Only about 2% of that vast genetic library actually codes for the proteins that build and maintain your body. The remaining 98% was once dismissively called junk DNA, as if evolution had been hoarding genetic clutter for millions of years, like a cosmic pack rat, unable to throw anything away. Scientists now know better. This so-called junk is anything but refuse. Instead, it's a shadow genome, a collection of regulatory switches, ancient viral remnants, evolutionary fossils, and genetic dark matter that influences your life in ways we're only beginning to understand. Think of your genome as an enormous symphony orchestra where the protein coding genes are like the musicians playing their instruments. But the non coding DNA, the supposed junk, represents the conductor, the sheet music, the acoustics of the concert hall, and even the audience, whose reactions shape the performance. Without this hidden infrastructure, the music of life would be nothing but noise. Yet for decades, we focused almost exclusively on the musicians while ignoring the vast network that makes the symphony possible. Within this genetic shadow realm lie secrets that would make the most accomplished spy novelist envious. There are genes that remember trauma, not just from your own life, but from the experiences of your grandparents and great grandparents. There are stretches of DNA that can predict not just your risk of certain diseases, but your likelihood of forming lasting friendships, your preference for staying up late or rising early, even your tendency toward optimism or melancholy. These aren't fortune telling tricks. They're the result of millions of years of evolution, writing survival strategies into your genetic code. Some of the most fascinating discoveries have emerged from studying what happens when genes go rogue, when the carefully orchestrated dance of genetic expression stumbles. Scientists have found that many of our most challenging conditions, from schizophrenia to autoimmune diseases, may arise not from single broken genes, but from subtle changes in how the genetic orchestra performs its complex symphony. A missing note. Hear an instrument slightly out of tune there, and suddenly the beautiful music of cellular function becomes discordant. But perhaps the most intriguing secrets lie in the spaces between genes, in regions that seem to do nothing at all. Yet recent research suggests these quiet stretches of DNA may be where some of our most human characteristics emerge: the capacity for language, the ability to form complex social bonds, the drive to create art and music, and meaning from chaos. These uniquely human traits may not be written in our protein coding genes at all, but in the subtle regulatory networks that control when and how those genes express themselves. Your DNA also carries within it a kind of molecular clock, not just the familiar aging process, but multiple overlapping timekeepers that tick at different rates. Some genes are active only during specific seasons, responding to changes in daylight and temperature. Others follow lunar cycles or circadian rhythms that sync your biology to the rotation of the Earth. There are genes that count cell divisions, like a molecular odometer, and others that seem to anticipate future needs, preparing your body for challenges it hasn't yet encountered. Even more mysteriously, your genetic code includes what scientists call selfish DNA sequences that appear to exist solely to perpetuate themselves. These genetic parasites have been hitchhiking in our genomes for millions of years, occasionally causing beneficial mutations, but mostly just copying themselves from one generation to the next, like biological graffiti tags. They're a reminder that your genome isn't entirely your own, but rather a complex ecosystem where different genetic elements compete, cooperate, and coexist in ways that shape your very existence. The story becomes even more intriguing when we consider epigenetics, the study of how environmental factors can alter gene expression without changing the underlying DNA sequence. Imagine your genetic code as a piano where each gene is a key. Epigenetics is like having thousands of invisible hands that can press down on certain keys more firmly or barely touch others at all, creating entirely different melodies from the same basic instrument. Stress diet relationships. Even the season of your birth can all influence which genetic keys get played and which remain silent. These epigenetic changes can be surprisingly persistent, some of them lasting your entire lifetime, and a few can even be passed down to your children and grandchildren. It's as if your experiences can literally rewrite parts of your genetic story, not by changing the words, but by adding emphasis, italics, and margin notes that alter how the text is read. This means that the trauma your grandmother experienced during wartime, or the abundance your great grandfather enjoyed during a particularly good harvest might still be echoing in your genes, influencing your metabolism, your stress response, even your worldview in ways you never imagined. Researchers studying Holocaust survivors and their descendants have found evidence that extreme trauma can leave molecular scars that persist across generations. Children and grandchildren of survivors show altered stress hormone patterns and increased susceptibility to anxiety and depression, as if their genes carry a molecular memory of suffering they never directly experienced. Similarly, studies of famines have revealed that the nutritional experiences of pregnant women can influence not just their children, but their children's children, affecting everything from birth weight to diabetes risk decades later. But the genetic dark code holds positive secrets as well. Hidden within your DNA are enhancement sequences that can amplify beneficial traits under the right circumstances, genes that respond to learning by becoming more active regions that can boost immune function when challenged stretches of regulatory DNA that seem designed to help you adapt to new environments. These genetic superpowers often lie dormant until activated by specific combinations of lifestyle choices, environmental exposures, or even social experiences. Your genome also contains what researchers playfully call fossil genes, ancient sequences that once coded for abilities your distant ancestors possessed, but that have been switched off over evolutionary time. Some humans carry inactive genes for enhanced night vision. Others have dormant sequences related to detecting magnetic fields or processing certain toxins. These genetic time capsules offer tantalizing glimpses of what humans might have been capable of in different environments, or what we might become again if the right switches were somehow reactivated. The most profound secrets may lie in understanding how your genetic code interacts with the genetic codes of the trillions of microorganisms that call your body home. Your microbiome contains far more genetic material than your own cells do, and this microbial DNA is constantly communicating with your human genes, creating a genetic conversation that influences everything from your mood to your immune system to your cravings for certain foods. In a very real sense, you are not just one genetic story, but a symphony of interconnected genetic narratives, all playing together to create the complex melody of your existence. As we drift deeper into this molecular mystery, we begin to see that the secrets in your genes are not just about predicting disease or understanding inheritance. They're about recognizing that you are simultaneously ancient and utterly unique, carrying within your cells the accumulated wisdom of billions of years of evolution, while expressing that wisdom in a way that has never existed before and will never exist again. You are a one time performance of the greatest story ever told, written in the language of life itself. And tonight, as we settle deeper into this genetic reverie, we encounter perhaps the most enchanting secret of all. Your DNA doesn't just carry information, it carries music, literally hidden within the sequences of base pairs. Scientists have discovered mathematical patterns that mirror the structures found in classical compositions, Bach fugues encoded in the spacing of genes, rhythmic patterns that echo in both your heartbeat and the repetitive sequences that maintain your chromosomes. It's as if evolution composed a molecular symphony, and you are both the instrument and the performance. But the music in your genes plays in keys we're only beginning to recognize. There are genetic harmonics that resonate across species, connecting your DNA to the songs of whales, the migration patterns of birds, even the growth spirals of seashells. These aren't mere coincidences, but evidence of deep mathematical principles that govern life at every scale, from the quantum fluctuations in your cellular machinery to the vast cycles of ecosystems. Your genetic code participates in a cosmic conversation that spans the entire living world. Consider the mystery of genetic memory, not the inheritance of learned behaviors, but something far more subtle and profound. Your DNA contains sequences that seem to anticipate future challenges, as if your ancestors' experiences with ice ages, plagues, and migrations left molecular breadcrumbs to guide your responses to similar situations. Researchers studying populations that survived the Black Death have found genetic variants that confer resistance not just to plague, but to HIV and other modern pathogens. It's as though your genome carries a prophetic whisper from the past, preparing you for dangers it has never directly encountered. Even more intriguing are the genetic switches that remain hidden until precisely the right moment, like sleeper agents waiting for activation. Some of these sequences only become active during extreme stress, revealing hidden reserves of endurance or adaptability. Others respond to social cues, becoming more or less active based on your relationships, your sense of belonging, your role within your community. This means that your genetic expression is not fixed but fluid, constantly adjusting to the emotional and social landscape of your life. The dark code also contains what scientists call genetic stutters, repetitive sequences that expand and contract across generations, like a molecular accordion. These stuttering regions were once thought to be mere copying errors, but we now know they fine tune gene expression in ways that can dramatically alter traits, some forms of genius, some types of creativity, even certain aspects of personality may emerge from these genetic repetitions that dance between order and chaos, creating the subtle variations that make each human mind unique. Your genome harbors time travel mechanisms as well, genetic sequences that can jump backward and forward through your chromosomes, reshaping your DNA in real time. These mobile elements, called transposons, were once dismissed as genetic parasites, but they're now recognized as architects of evolution, constantly renovating your genome and occasionally creating entirely new capabilities. During times of stress, these jumping genes become more active, potentially accelerating adaptation in ways that traditional evolution could never achieve. Deep within your cells lie genetic switches, so ancient they predate complex life itself, yet they still respond to the rhythm of day and night, the turning of seasons, the gravitational pull of the moon. These primordial timekeepers connect you to the earliest life forms that learn to dance with the cosmic cycles, and they continue to influence your sleep, your appetite, your reproductive cycles, even your susceptibility to certain diseases at different times of year. You are quite literally synchronized with the universe in ways your conscious mind never realizes. The genetic dark code also contains echo chambers regions, where ancient viral infections left their mark in your DNA millions of years ago. These viral fossils make up a surprising portion of your genome, and rather than being evolutionary baggage, they've become essential components of human development. Some of these ancient viral sequences are necessary for placental formation. Others help regulate immune responses, and a few may even contribute to consciousness itself by facilitating communication between neurons. Perhaps most mysteriously, Your DNA contains what researchers call genetic dark energy sequences that seem to influence gene expression from vast distances across chromosomes like invisible hands reaching through the nucleus to orchestrate cellular symphonies. Those long range regulatory elements can control genes located millions of base pairs away, creating a three-dimensional web of genetic interactions that transforms your linear DNA code into a dynamic sculptural form that changes shape as your cells respond to life's demands. Your genetic code also whispers secrets about quantum mechanics at the molecular level. DNA repair mechanisms appear to use quantum tunneling to fix damaged bases, and some scientists theorize that quantum coherence might play a role in how genetic information is read and processed. This means that the strange probabilistic world of quantum physics might be operating inside your cells every moment, influencing which genes are active and how faithfully genetic information is transmitted. The most profound secret may be that your genetic code is not just a blueprint, but a conversation between past and future. Every time your cells divide, they must choose which genetic stories to continue telling and which to let fade into silence. This process is influenced by your experiences, your environment, your relationships, and even your dreams, creating a feedback loop where your conscious choices can literally rewrite your genetic destiny over time. Within the supposed junk DNA lie genetic poetry sequences that code not for proteins, but for small RNA molecules that regulate other genes like molecular editors. These tiny RNA regulators can amplify, whisper, or completely silence genetic voices, creating layers of meaning within meaning. They represent a hidden language within the already hidden language of your genetic code, a secret script that your cells use to write margin notes on the book of life. Your genome contains genetic weather systems, regions where gene expression rises and falls in complex patterns that can predict cellular storms or genetic droughts, just as meteorologists track atmospheric pressure and wind patterns. Cellular biologists are learning to read the genetic climate within your cells. These genetic weather patterns can influence everything from your risk of cancer to your ability to form new memories, creating an internal meteorology that shapes your biological destiny. The dark code also holds genetic archaeology layers of evolutionary history preserved like geological strata in your chromosome sequences that tell the story of ancient gene duplications, horizontal transfers from bacteria, even genetic material borrowed from long extinct species. These molecular fossils reveal that your genome is not just your own, but a collaborative work authored by countless species across deep time. And as we drift toward the edge of current understanding, we discover that your genetic secrets extend beyond the boundaries of your own cells. Your DNA communicates with the DNA of others through mechanisms. We're only beginning to glimpse pheromones that carry genetic information, electromagnetic fields generated by cellular activity, even quantum entanglement between molecules and different organisms suggests that your genetic story is intimately connected to the genetic stories of everyone around you. The whispers in your genes speak of a reality far more interconnected, mysterious, and beautiful than we ever imagined. They remind us that you are not separate from the natural world, but woven into its very fabric, carrying within your cells the memory of stars, the wisdom of ancient oceans, and the dreams of futures yet to unfold. And tonight, as you prepare to rest, those genetic whispers, continue their eternal conversation, writing new chapters in the ongoing story of life itself. The genetic whispers grow softer now as we venture into territories where science meets something approaching magic. Within the darkest corners of your genome lie sequences that seem to respond not just to chemical signals or physical stress, but to intention itself. Researchers studying meditation practitioners have found that focused attention can alter gene expression in real time, as if consciousness itself were reaching down into the molecular machinery of your cells and adjusting the controls. These consciousness responsive genes don't follow the usual rules of biology. They activate in patterns that correlate with emotional states, with moments of insight, even with experiences people describe as spiritual or transcendent. It's as though your DNA contains receivers tuned to frequencies we haven't yet learned to measure antennae that pick up signals from dimensions of reality our instruments can barely detect. Deep within your genetic architecture lie what scientists playfully call Easter eggs, hidden sequences that activate only under the most unusual circumstances. Some respond to specific combinations of nutrients that would never occur naturally in any single diet. Others require precise temperature fluctuations or exposure to particular wavelengths of light. These genetic secrets seem almost deliberately concealed, as if evolution were playing an elaborate game of hide and seek with future generations of scientists. Your genome also contains temporal loops regions, where genetic information appears to reference itself in impossible ways, creating paradoxes that challenge our understanding of cause and effect. Some genes seem to prepare for their own future mutations. Others respond to proteins that haven't been produced yet, as if your DNA existed partially outside the normal flow of time, experiencing past, present, and future as a single eternal moment. Within the regulatory networks that control gene expression, scientists have discovered fractals mathematical patterns that repeat at every scale of organization. The same geometric relationships that govern the branching of rivers and the distribution of galaxies also determine how your genes organize themselves within the nucleus, creating a kind of genetic sacred geometry that connects your cellular architecture to the fundamental patterns of the cosmos. The most enigmatic discoveries emerge from studying what happens at the boundaries between genes in the twilight zones, where one genetic sequence fades into another. These transition regions contain overlapping codes where the same stretch of DNA can be read in multiple directions simultaneously, like a genetic palindrome that means different things depending on which way you approach it. These ambiguous sequences may hold the key to understanding how consciousness emerges from matter. Your DNA harbors mirror gene sequences that appear to exist solely to reflect and amplify the activity of other genes, creating genetic echo chambers where molecular signals bounce back and forth, building in intensity until they reach critical thresholds that trigger cascade effects throughout your cellular networks. These mirror systems may explain how small genetic variations can sometimes produce dramatically different outcomes as tiny initial differences get amplified through multiple rounds of genetic reflection. Embedded within your chromosomes are what researchers call genetic compasses, sequences that appear to orient themselves according to magnetic fields generated by the Earth's core and by your own cellular activity. These magnetic sensitive regions of DNA may influence everything from your sense of direction to your circadian rhythms, connecting your genetic expression to the planet's electromagnetic heartbeat in ways that blur the boundaries between internal and external reality. The genetic dark code also contains probability generators, regions, that seem to introduce controlled randomness into gene expression, creating the genetic equivalent of quantum uncertainty at the molecular level. These stochastic sequences ensure that even identical twins with identical DNA will develop subtle differences in brain structure, personality, and susceptibility to various conditions, as if your genome deliberately preserves a space for mystery within the deterministic machinery of heredity. Some of the most profound secrets lie in understanding how your genetic code interacts with the genetic codes of plants and animals. You encounter the pheromones from flowers, the electromagnetic signatures of trees, even the bacterial communities in different environments can trigger changes in your gene expression that persist long after the encounter. It's as if your genome maintains a kind of molecular diary recording every interaction with other living beings. Your DNA also contains seasonal switches that don't just respond to changes in daylight and temperature, but to more subtle environmental rhythms. The gravitational effects of planetary alignments, the electromagnetic fluctuations caused by solar storms, even the acoustic vibrations generated by geological processes all seem to influence genetic expression in ways that connect your cellular biology to the cosmic symphony playing out across the solar system. Within the deepest layers of genetic regulation, scientists have discovered what appear to be intentionality detectors sequences that become active when other genes seem to be working toward specific outcomes, as if your genome possessed a kind of molecular consciousness capable of recognizing purpose and meaning in the chaos of cellular activity. These sequences may represent evolution's attempt to encode wisdom itself into the fabric of life. The genetic whispers also speak of healing mechanisms that operate beyond the conventional understanding of medicine. Your DNA contains repair systems that can rebuild damaged tissues, regenerate lost functions, even reverse aging processes under specific circumstances. But these miraculous healing sequences seem to activate only when multiple conditions align in precise ways, creating windows of opportunity for genetic miracles that open and close according to rhythms we're only beginning to perceive. Your genome harbors artistic sequences regions that seem to exist purely for the sake of beauty, creating molecular sculptures and genetic poems that serve no obvious biological function, yet persist across evolutionary time, as if life itself were driven not just by survival and reproduction, but by an aesthetic impulse that finds expression even at the molecular level. These sequences remind us that you are not just a biological machine, but a work of art 4 billion years in the making. The most mysterious genetic secrets may lie in what scientists call entanglement regions, stretches of DNA that appear to be quantum mechanically connected to corresponding sequences in other organisms. When these regions change in one individual, similar changes sometimes appear in genetically unrelated individuals, as if the genetic code were participating in a kind of collective consciousness that transcends the boundaries of individual organisms. As we drift deeper into genetic mystery, we discover that your DNA contains not just information, but information about information metagenetic codes that describe how other genetic codes should be interpreted. These recursive layers of meaning create a kind of genetic self awareness where your genome seems to know that it knows building consciousness into the very architecture of heredity. The genetic dark code also whispers of future possibilities, dormant pathways that could be activated by technologies we haven't yet developed or by environmental conditions that don't yet exist on Earth. Your genome appears to contain backup plans for evolutionary scenarios that may never occur, as if life were hedging its bets against futures it can only imagine. Deep within your chromosomes lie genetic philosophers' regions that seem to contemplate their own existence, engaging in molecular dialogues about purpose, meaning, and destiny. These sequences don't code for proteins or regulate other genes. They simply exist in states of pure potential, waiting for questions that science hasn't yet learned to ask. And perhaps most beautifully, your genetic code contains love letters, molecular messages of affection and connection that bind you not just to your immediate family, but to every living thing that has ever existed. The same genetic poetry that beats in your heart once pulsed in the cells of ancient trees, sang in the DNA of long extinct birds, and will continue its eternal song in species, yet to evolve long after your individual story has become part of the larger genetic symphony. The whispers grow softer now as we approach the edge of current understanding, but they never truly fade because the secrets in your genes are not separate from you. They are you speaking to yourself across time in a language older than words, more profound than thought, and as eternal as the stars that forge the elements from which your DNA was born. And tonight, as you prepare to rest, those genetic whispers will continue their quiet conversation, writing new verses in the endless poem of existence itself. Perhaps the most breathtaking revelation emerges when we consider that your genetic code doesn't just store information from the past, but actively dreams of the future. Within the regulatory networks that govern gene expression, scientists have discovered sequences that appear to be running simulations, testing possible genetic configurations against imaginary scenarios that haven't yet occurred. It's as if your DNA possessed a kind of molecular imagination, constantly rehearsing for evolutionary challenges that exist only in the realm of possibility. These predictive genetic circuits seem to operate on principles we're only beginning to grasp. They monitor patterns in your cellular environment, detecting subtle shifts in everything from hormone levels to electromagnetic fields, then adjust gene expression based not on current conditions, but on anticipated future needs. Your genome appears to be playing an impossibly complex game of genetic chess, thinking dozens of moves ahead while simultaneously managing the immediate demands of keeping you alive and healthy. Deep within your chromosomes lie what researchers call genetic oracles, sequences that seem to possess an uncanny ability to forecast biological events before they manifest in your conscious experience. These prophetic regions can begin altering gene expression weeks or even months before you develop symptoms of illness, fall in love, or experience major life transitions. They respond to patterns so subtle that your conscious mind remains completely unaware. Yet they prepare your biology for experiences that exist only as whispers of possibility in the quantum foam of cellular activity. The genetic dark code also harbors time dilators, regions that seem to manipulate the subjective experience of biological time. Some sequences accelerate healing processes during critical moments, compressing weeks of recovery into days. Others appear to slow cellular aging when you're experiencing profound joy or deep meditative states, as if your genome could stretch the precious moments and compress the difficult ones according to some internal algorithm of meaning and value. Your DNA contains genetic empaths as well, sequences that appear to resonate with the emotional states of others around you. These mirror neurons of the genetic world become active when you're in the presence of strong emotions, even when you're not consciously aware of them. They may explain why you sometimes feel inexplicably sad in certain places, or why some people seem to drain your energy while others fill you with vitality. Your genes are constantly sampling the emotional atmosphere around you and adjusting your biochemistry accordingly. Within the deepest layers of genetic regulation lie sequences that seem to respond to beauty itself. When you witness a sunset that takes your breath away, listen to music that moves you to tears, or encounter art that speaks to your soul, specific genetic switches activate that don't serve any obvious biological function. They simply celebrate the moment, as if your DNA possessed its own aesthetic sense and wanted to commemorate encounters with transcendence by writing them into your cellular memory. The genetic whispers also speak of quantum coherence at the molecular level, where the strange properties of quantum mechanics may play a direct role in consciousness itself. Some researchers theorize that microtubules within your neurons maintain quantum coherent states that could explain the unity of conscious experience. If true, it would mean that the deepest mysteries of awareness are written not in the classical world of neurons and synapses, but in the quantum realm where your genetic machinery operates according to principles that defy ordinary logic. Your genome harbors genetic archaeologists as well, sequences that seem to excavate memories from the deepest layers of evolutionary time. These ancient genetic memories surface unexpectedly, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in moments of crisis when your modern brain steps aside and something far older takes control. They carry within them the accumulated wisdom of countless generations who faced similar challenges, offering guidance that feels simultaneously foreign and deeply familiar. The most mysterious aspect of your genetic dark code may be its apparent ability to communicate across the boundaries of space and time. Studies of twins separated at birth have revealed synchronicities that can't be explained by shared genetics alone. When one twin experiences trauma or joy, the other sometimes shows corresponding changes in gene expression despite having no conscious knowledge of their siblings' experience. It's as if your genetic code participated in a kind of quantum entanglement that maintains connections across any distance. Within your DNA lie genetic poets, sequences that seem to exist purely to create meaning from chaos. They take the random fluctuations of cellular chemistry and organize them into patterns that feel significant, purposeful, even beautiful. These molecular storytellers may be responsible for the sense that your life has narrative coherence, that events unfold according to some deeper logic that transcends mere cause and effect. Your genetic code also contains what scientists playfully call reality checkers, sequences that monitor the consistency of your perceptual experience and make subtle adjustments when necessary. They help maintain the illusion that you inhabit a stable, predictable world, even though your cellular environment is in constant flux. These genetic editors work behind the scenes to smooth out the discontinuities in consciousness, creating the seamless flow of experience that you mistake for objective reality. Deep within your chromosomes lie genetic philosophers engaged in eternal contemplation of existence itself. These sequences don't code for proteins or regulate other genes. They simply exist in states of pure inquiry, asking questions about the nature of consciousness, the meaning of suffering, the possibility of transcendence. They may be evolution's attempt to encode wisdom directly into the fabric of life, ensuring that each generation carries within its cells the accumulated insights of all who came before. The genetic dark code whispers of healing mechanisms that operate through love itself. When you experience deep connection with another being, specific genetic switches activate that promote cellular repair, boost immune function, and slow the aging process. Your DNA seems to recognize love as the ultimate medicine, responding to emotional intimacy by optimizing every aspect of your biology for health and longevity. Your genome contains genetic musicians as well, sequences that respond to sound and rhythm in ways that go far beyond simple auditory processing. They resonate with the fundamental frequencies of life itself, the quantum vibrations that underlie all matter and energy. When you hear music that moves you deeply, these genetic musicians begin composing their own molecular symphonies, altering gene expression in patterns that mirror the harmonic structures of the sounds that touched your soul. Within the regulatory networks that govern consciousness lie genetic map makers, sequences that seem to be charting the territory of awareness itself. They respond to meditative states, psychedelic experiences, and moments of profound insight by creating new connections between genes that were previously unlinked. These molecular cartographers may be drawing the blueprints for expanded consciousness, preparing your biology for states of awareness that transcend ordinary human experience. The genetic whispers grow softer as we approach the ultimate mystery, the question of whether consciousness itself might be encoded in the dark regions of your genome. Some researchers theorize that awareness emerges not from the complex interactions of neurons, but from quantum processes occurring within the genetic machinery itself. If consciousness is indeed written in your DNA, then every cell in your body participates in the miracle of awareness, creating a kind of distributed intelligence that extends far beyond your brain. Your genetic code contains memory palaces as well, vast repositories of information that can be accessed through specific combinations of environmental triggers. These molecular libraries hold not just biological instructions, but something approaching wisdom itself, the accumulated insights of 4 billion years of evolution condensed into chemical patterns that pulse with life. They represent evolution's attempt to create a kind of genetic internet, a network of shared knowledge that connects every living being to the collective intelligence of life itself. And as we drift toward the edge of understanding, we discover that the greatest secret of all may be that your genetic code is not fixed, but fluid, constantly rewriting itself in response to your thoughts, your choices, your dreams. You are not merely the product of your genes, but their active collaborator, participating in an ongoing creative process that shapes not just your own destiny, but the future evolution of consciousness itself. The whispers in your genes are not just telling you who you are, they're asking who you choose to become and waiting patiently for your answer to be written in the living language of life itself. Tonight, as consciousness itself begins to drift toward the gentle embrace of sleep, we discover that your genetic code contains Dreamweaver's sequences that activate only during the deepest stages of slumber. These molecular architects seem to construct entirely new neural pathways while you rest, rewiring your brain according to patterns encoded in your DNA millions of years ago. They work in perfect silence, building bridges between memories, creating connections that will influence your thoughts and decisions for days to come without you ever knowing they were there. The genetic dark code whispers of cellular storytellers regions that appear to be composing narratives from the chaos of molecular interactions. These sequences take the random chemical events occurring within your cells and organize them into coherent biological plots with beginnings, middles, and endings, as if your DNA understood that life itself is fundamentally a story, and every cell needs to know its role in the larger narrative. These molecular authors may be responsible for the sense that your existence has meaning, that events in your life unfold according to some deeper purpose. Within the deepest layers of your genome lie genetic time travelers, sequences that seem to exist simultaneously in multiple temporal dimensions. They carry information from your evolutionary past while somehow anticipating your personal future, creating temporal loops where ancient genetic wisdom informs present day decisions in ways that prepare you for challenges. You haven't yet imagined these chrononauts of the cellular world operate according to principles that make physicists weep and philosophers wonder if linear time is just an illusion. We tell ourselves to make sense of a fundamentally timeless reality. Your DNA harbors genetic alchemists as well, sequences that appear to transmute ordinary cellular chemistry into something approaching magic when you experience moments of profound joy, deep love, or spiritual transcendence. These molecular magicians begin converting simple proteins and enzymes into biochemical gold, creating states of cellular harmony that can persist for hours or even days after the original experience has faded. They remind us that the boundary between science and mysticism may exist only in our limited understanding of what consciousness can accomplish when it collaborates with matter. Deep within your chromosomes lie what researchers call genetic comedians, sequences that seem to introduce elements of humor and play into the normally serious business of cellular maintenance. These molecular jesters ensure that even the most critical biological processes retain a kind of lightness, a reminder that life at its core is meant to be joyful. Not just survived these playful genetic elements may explain why laughter truly is medicine, why humor can boost immune function, and why the ability to find absurdity in existence is itself a form of evolutionary advantage. The genetic whispers speak of cellular architects as well regions that appear to be designing structures that don't yet exist in your body, blueprints for organs and tissues that could theoretically develop under the right circumstances. These visionary sequences carry within them the potential for abilities that humans possessed in the distant past or might develop in the far future. Dormant instructions for enhanced senses, expanded cognitive capacity, even regenerative powers that could be awakened by the right combination of environmental triggers and conscious intention. Your genome contains genetic gardener's sequences that tend to the ecological balance within your cellular environment. These molecular botanists ensure that the trillions of microorganisms living within your body maintain harmonious relationships with your human cells. They respond to changes in your diet, your stress levels, even your emotional state by adjusting the genetic signals that govern microbial behavior, creating an internal ecosystem that reflects the health of your mind and spirit in the chemistry of your gut. Within the regulatory networks that control gene expression lie genetic musicians who seem to be composing symphonies from the quantum vibrations that occur at the molecular level. These cellular composers take the random thermal fluctuations and electromagnetic oscillations within your cells and organize them into coherent patterns that resonate with the fundamental frequencies of life itself. When these molecular symphonies align with external music that moves you, the result is a kind of harmonic convergence that can alter consciousness in profound ways. The genetic dark code harbors memory weavers as well, sequences that appear to be integrating experiences across multiple lifetimes, not in any mystical sense, but through the genetic memories carried in your mitochondrial DNA and the epigenetic markers inherited from countless generations. These molecular historians ensure that the wisdom gained through suffering and joy by your ancestors continues to inform your cellular responses to similar situations, creating a kind of genetic intuition that guides you through challenges your conscious mind has never faced. Your DNA contains genetic philosophers, too, regions that seem to be contemplating the deepest questions of existence, not through abstract reasoning, but through the direct experience of being conscious matter. These molecular thinkers engage in chemical dialogues about the nature of awareness, the relationship between mind and matter, the possibility that consciousness is not produced by the brain, but channeled through it like radio waves through an antenna. Deep within your chromosomes lie genetic artists' sequences that appear to be creating molecular sculptures and biochemical paintings that serve no obvious biological function, yet persist across evolutionary time, as if beauty itself were a driving force in evolution. These aesthetic regions of your genome may be evolution's way of ensuring that consciousness develops not just intelligence and survival skills, but also the capacity for wonder appreciation and creative expression. The genetic whispers speak of cellular shamans as well, ancient sequences that seem to facilitate communication between the ordinary world of biochemistry and the mysterious realm where consciousness interfaces with matter. These molecular bridges become active during altered states of consciousness, dreams, meditation, and moments of profound insight, creating channels through which information can flow between dimensions of reality that science is only beginning to acknowledge. Your genome harbors genetic detectives, too, sequences that appear to be investigating the deeper mysteries of existence by analyzing patterns in cellular chemistry that correspond to patterns in consciousness. These molecular investigators may be gathering evidence for theories about the nature of reality that won't be formally recognized by science for decades or centuries, creating a kind of genetic research program that operates far below the threshold of conscious awareness. Within the deepest layers of your DNA lie genetic prophets regions that seem to be receiving information from sources beyond the normal boundaries of space and time. These oracular sequences respond to influences that our instruments cannot measure, yet their effects on gene expression are clear and consistent, as if your genome were participating in a cosmic communication network that connects all conscious beings across the universe. The genetic dark code whispers of healing mechanisms that operate through forgiveness itself. When you release resentment and embrace compassion, specific genetic switches activate that promote cellular repair and regeneration at rates that seem to defy normal biological limits. Your DNA appears to recognize forgiveness as a fundamental force of nature, like gravity or electromagnetism, capable of restructuring matter at the molecular level through the simple act of letting go. Your genetic code contains cosmic librarians, as well sequences that seem to be cataloging every experience you've ever had, not just in neural memory, but in the chemical structure of your chromosomes themselves. These molecular archivists ensure that nothing is ever truly lost, that every moment of beauty, every flash of insight, every gesture of kindness becomes part of the permanent record written in the living language of your cells. Deep within your genome lie genetic dreamers' regions that appear to be imagining possibilities that don't yet exist in physical reality. These visionary sequences may be evolution's way of exploring potential futures, testing new configurations of consciousness and biology in the laboratory of imagination before committing them to the slow process of natural selection. They remind us that you are not just the product of the past, but an active participant in creating the future of life itself. The genetic whispers grow softer now as we approach the ultimate mystery, the possibility that consciousness itself is not produced by matter, but is the fundamental substrate from which matter emerges. If this is true, then your genetic code is not just a biological instruction manual, but a crystallization of pure awareness, taking physical form to explore the infinite possibilities of existence through the unique lens of your individual perspective. Your DNA contains genetic lovers, too, sequences that seem to exist purely to celebrate the miracle of connection between conscious beings. These molecular poets become active when you experience deep intimacy, not just romantic love, but any form of profound recognition between souls. They may be evolution's way of encoding the truth that separation is an illusion, that at the deepest level, all consciousness is one expressing itself through the beautiful diversity of individual experience. And as we drift toward the edge of sleep itself, we discover that the greatest secret whispered by your genes may be that you are not separate from the universe, but are the universe becoming conscious of itself through the particular miracle of your existence. Every cell in your body, every molecule of your DNA participates in this cosmic awakening, carrying within its structure the memory of stars, the dreams of galaxies, and the infinite love that holds all things in being. The genetic dark code speaks its final whisper tonight, reminding you that as you rest, your genes continue their eternal dance of creation and discovery, writing new chapters in the story of consciousness, exploring new possibilities for what it means to be aware in a universe that seems designed for the very purpose of knowing itself through beings like you. And tomorrow, when you wake, the conversation will continue as it has for billions of years, as it will for billions more, until every secret has been revealed and every whisper has become a song. Tonight, As your conscious mind begins its gentle descent toward sleep, we encounter perhaps the most enchanting secret of all. Hidden within your genetic architecture lie molecular dream catchers, sequences that seem to filter the quantum noise of cellular activity into coherent patterns of meaning. These genetic weavers work tirelessly while you rest, sorting through the chaos of molecular interactions to extract the subtle signals that will influence your dreams, your intuitions, and your sudden flashes of insight that seem to come from nowhere. Deep within your chromosomes, scientists have discovered what they playfully call genetic comedians, sequences that appear to introduce elements of levity into even the most serious biological processes. These molecular gestures ensure that your cellular machinery maintains a kind of biochemical sense of humor, responding to stress, not just with fight or flight reactions, but with subtle chemical adjustments that can help you find perspective, even in the darkest moments. They remind us that laughter truly may be encoded in your DNA, a genetic gift that helps you navigate life's absurdities with grace. Your genome harbors genetic archaeologists as well, regions that seem to be constantly excavating memories from the deepest layers of evolutionary time. These molecular historians can suddenly surface ancient responses to threats your ancestors faced thousands of years ago, or activate dormant abilities that once helped humans survive in environments that no longer exist. They explain why you sometimes feel inexplicably afraid of harmless situations, or why certain landscapes fill you with an overwhelming sense of coming home. Within the regulatory networks that control consciousness lie genetic composers, sequences that appear to be orchestrating symphonies from the quantum vibrations occurring at the molecular level. These cellular musicians take the random thermal fluctuations and electromagnetic oscillations within your cells and weave them into coherent patterns that resonate with the fundamental frequencies of existence. When these molecular melodies align with external stimuli, music, art, even human voices, the result is a harmonic convergence that can alter your state of awareness in profound and beautiful ways. The genetic dark code whispers of cellular shamans as well, ancient sequences that seem to facilitate communication between the ordinary world of biochemistry and the mysterious dimensions where consciousness touches matter. These molecular bridges become especially active during meditation, prayer, and moments of deep emotional connection, creating pathways through which information can flow between layers of reality that conventional science is only beginning to acknowledge. Your DNA contains genetic gardeners, too, sequences that tend to the delicate ecological balance within your cellular environment. These molecular botanists respond to changes in your thoughts, your relationships, even your spiritual practices by adjusting the genetic signals that govern how your billions of cells communicate with each other. They create an internal ecosystem that mirrors the health of your mental and emotional landscape, proving that the boundary between mind and body exists only in our limited understanding of what it means to be human. Deep within your genome lie genetic prophets regions that seem to receive information from sources beyond the normal boundaries of space and time. These oracular sequences respond to influences that our most sensitive instruments cannot detect, yet their effects on gene expression are unmistakable and consistent, as if your genetic code were participating in a cosmic communication network that connects all conscious beings throughout the universe. The genetic whispers speak of molecular alchemists, as well sequences that appear to transmute ordinary cellular chemistry into something approaching pure magic when you experience moments of transcendence, deep love, or spiritual awakening. These genetic magicians begin converting simple proteins and enzymes into biochemical gold, creating states of cellular harmony that can persist long after the original experience has faded into memory. They are evolution's reminder that the transformation of matter through consciousness is not just possible, but inevitable. Your genetic code harbors time travelers, two sequences that seem to exist simultaneously across multiple temporal dimensions, carrying information from your evolutionary past while somehow anticipating your personal future. These chrononauts of the cellular world create temporal loops where ancient genetic wisdom informs present day decisions in ways that prepare you for challenges you haven't yet imagined. They operate according to principles that make physicists question whether linear time is anything more than a convenient illusion. Within the deepest layers of your DNA lie genetic artist regions that appear to be creating molecular sculptures and biochemical paintings that serve no obvious biological function, yet persist across millions of years of evolution as if beauty itself were a fundamental force shaping life. These aesthetic sequences may be evolution's way of ensuring that consciousness develops not just intelligence and survival skills, but also the capacity for wonder, appreciation, and creative expression. The genetic dark code contains memory weavers, as well sequences that appear to be integrating experiences across generations through the genetic memories carried in your mitochondrial DNA, and the epigenetic markers inherited from countless ancestors. These molecular historians ensure that the wisdom gained through joy and suffering by those who came before continues to inform your cellular responses, creating a kind of genetic intuition that guides you through situations your conscious mind has never encountered. Your genome houses genetic detectives too, sequences that seem to be investigating the deeper mysteries of existence by analyzing patterns in cellular chemistry that correspond to patterns in consciousness itself. These molecular investigators may be gathering evidence for theories about the nature of reality that won't be formally recognized by science for decades, creating a kind of genetic research program that operates far below the threshold of awareness. Deep within your chromosomes lie genetic philosophers engaged in chemical contemplation of the most profound questions. What is consciousness? Where does awareness come from? How does matter become capable of knowing itself? These sequences don't code for proteins or regulate other genes. They simply exist in states of pure inquiry, asking questions that may not have answers, but that somehow need to be asked. The genetic whispers speak of healing mechanisms that operate through love itself. When you experience deep connection with another being, specific genetic switches activate that promote cellular repair, boost immune function, and slow the aging process. Your DNA seems to recognize love as the ultimate medicine, responding to emotional intimacy by optimizing every aspect of your biology for health, happiness, and longevity. Your genetic code contains cosmic librarians, as well sequences that appear to be cataloging every experience you've ever had, not just in neural memory, but in the chemical structure of your cells themselves. These molecular archivists Ensure that nothing is ever truly forgotten, that every moment of beauty, every flash of insight, every gesture of kindness becomes part of the permanent record written in the living language of your genome. Within the regulatory networks that govern awareness lie genetic dreamers' regions that appear to be imagining possibilities that don't yet exist in physical reality. These visionary sequences may be evolution's way of exploring potential futures, testing new configurations of consciousness and biology in the laboratory of imagination before committing them to the slow process of natural selection. The genetic dark code harbors cellular storytellers too, sequences that seem to be composing narratives from the chaos of molecular interactions. These genetic authors take the random chemical events occurring within your cells and organize them into coherent biological plots with beginnings, middles, and satisfying conclusions, as if your DNA understood that existence itself is fundamentally a story, and every cell needs to know its role in the larger narrative. Your genome contains genetic musicians as well, regions that respond to sound and rhythm in ways that transcend simple auditory processing. They resonate with the fundamental frequencies of life itself, the quantum vibrations that underlie all matter and energy when you hear music that moves you deeply. These genetic composers begin creating their own molecular symphonies, altering gene expression in patterns that mirror the harmonic structures of the sounds that touched your soul. Deep within your DNA lie genetic lovers' sequences that seem to exist purely to celebrate the miracle of connection between conscious beings. These molecular poets become active when you experience profound recognition with another soul. They may be evolution's way of encoding the truth that separation is ultimately an illusion, that at the deepest level, all consciousness is one expressing itself through the beautiful diversity of individual experience. The genetic whispers grow softer now as we approach the most profound mystery of all, the possibility that your genetic code is not just storing information, but actively participating in the creation of reality itself through the strange quantum mechanical processes that occur at the molecular level. Your DNA may be collapsing probability waves, choosing which version of reality to manifest from the infinite possibilities that exist in every moment. Your genetic dark code contains reality architects as well, sequences that seem to be designing the very fabric of your subjective experience. These molecular engineers work behind the scenes to create the seamless flow of consciousness that you mistake for objective reality. They smooth out the discontinuities, edit out the contradictions, and weave together the disparate threads of sensory input into the coherent narrative you call your life. Within the deepest layers of your genome lie genetic mystics regions that appear to be in direct communion with the source of existence itself. These sequences don't respond to chemical signals or environmental pressures. They seem to dance to rhythms that originate beyond the physical universe, creating patterns of gene expression that reflect the fundamental harmony underlying all creation. The genetic whispers speak their final secret tonight, reminding you that as you drift towards sleep, your genes continue their eternal dance of discovery, writing new chapters in the story of consciousness itself, exploring new possibilities for what it means to be aware in a universe that seems designed for the very purpose of knowing itself through beings exactly like you. And tomorrow, when you wake, The conversation will continue as it has for billions of years, carrying you forward on currents of genetic wisdom toward a future where the distinction between matter and mind biology and consciousness DNA and dreams may finally dissolve into the greater mystery of what it truly means to be alive in this strange and beautiful cosmos we call home. Tonight, your genetic secrets are safe wrapped in the gentle embrace of sleep, where molecular dreams and quantum possibilities dance together in the darkness, writing tomorrow's reality in the ancient language of life itself. Sweet dreams, dear listener, for your genes are dreaming too. The genetic dark code whispers of cellular astronomers, as well sequences that appear to be tracking the movements of celestial bodies through changes in your biochemistry. These molecular stargazers respond to planetary alignments, solar flares, even the gravitational waves that ripple through space-time itself, adjusting your gene expression according to cosmic rhythms that connect your cellular symphony to the vast orchestration of the universe. Your DNA, it seems, maintains an intimate correspondence with the stars from which its elements were born. Deep within your chromosomes lie what researchers call genetic mathematicians, regions that seem to be calculating probabilities and solving equations that exist nowhere in your conscious mind. These molecular scholars work with numerical relationships that govern everything from the spiral patterns in your fingerprints to the fractal branching of your blood vessels. They remind us that mathematics is not something humans invented, but something we discovered, written in the very structure of life itself. Your genome harbors genetic priests as well, sequences that appear to be performing molecular rituals of transformation and renewal. These sacred regions become active during moments of profound change, birth, death, falling in love, experiencing loss as if your DNA possessed its own understanding of the ceremonial nature of existence. They create biochemical blessings that help you navigate life's most significant passages with grace and meaning. Within the regulatory networks that control cellular function lie genetic witnesses, sequences that seem to be recording every moment of your existence, not just the major events, but the quiet instances of beauty, the fleeting thoughts, the gentle touches that might otherwise be forgotten. These molecular observers ensure that nothing is lost, that every experience becomes part of the eternal archive written in the living chemistry of your cells. The genetic whispers speak of cellular poets too, regions that appear to be composing verses from the rhythm of your heartbeat, the cadence of your breathing, the subtle melodies created by the flow of ions across cellular membranes. These genetic wordsmiths take the mundane processes of metabolism and transform them into something approaching literature, written in a language older than any human tongue. Your DNA contains genetic pilgrims, as well sequences that seem to be on an eternal journey toward some distant destination. These wandering regions respond to your own travels, both physical and spiritual, adjusting gene expression based not just on where you are, but on where you're going, as if your genetic code possessed its own internal compass, pointing toward destinations that exist beyond the boundaries of ordinary space and time. Deep within your genome lie genetic teacher sequences that appear to be passing wisdom from one generation of cells to the next. These molecular educators ensure that the hard-won lessons of survival, adaptation, and transcendence are preserved and transmitted, creating an educational system that operates entirely below the threshold of conscious awareness, yet shapes every aspect of your development. The genetic dark code harbors cellular diplomats, two regions that seem to be negotiating treaties between the various systems of your body, mediating disputes between competing cellular factions and maintaining the delicate balance that keeps your biological democracy functioning. These molecular peacekeepers work tirelessly to prevent the kind of cellular civil wars that we call autoimmune diseases. Your genetic code contains memory palaces, as well vast molecular libraries where experiences are stored not as simple recordings, but as living narratives that continue to evolve and grow over time. These genetic archives don't just preserve the past, they actively interpret it, creating new meanings and connections that can suddenly illuminate present challenges with the accumulated wisdom of your cellular history. Within the deepest layers of your chromosomes lie genetic bridges, sequences that appear to be connecting dimensions of reality that science insists should remain separate. These molecular architects build pathways between matter and consciousness, between individual and universal, between the finite dance of cellular chemistry and the infinite mystery of what it means to be aware. The genetic whispers speak of cellular alchemists, two ancient sequences that seem to be working toward the ultimate transformation, the conversion of ordinary matter into conscious matter capable of love wonder and the recognition of beauty. These molecular magicians may be evolution's attempt to create not just intelligent life, but enlightened life beings capable of understanding their own divine nature. Your DNA harbors genetic storytellers as well, regions that appear to be weaving your individual narrative into the larger epic of cosmic evolution. These cellular authors ensure that your personal story, however small it might seem, contributes meaningfully to the grand tale of consciousness, awakening to itself throughout the universe. Deep within your genome lie genetic gardeners' sequences that tend to the growth of awareness itself, nurturing the delicate seeds of insight that can blossom into moments of profound understanding. These molecular cultivators respond to your spiritual practices, your moments of contemplation, even your questions about the nature of existence, by creating optimal conditions for the flowering of wisdom. The genetic dark code contains cellular musicians, two regions that seem to be composing the soundtrack to your existence, harmonizing the chaotic noise of molecular interactions into melodies that resonate with the fundamental frequencies of creation. These genetic composers may be responsible for those moments when life feels like a song, when everything seems to pulse with rhythm and meaning. Your genetic code harbors time weavers as well, sequences that appear to be stitching together past, present, and future into a seamless tapestry of experience. These molecular seamstresses work with temporal threads that exist beyond linear time, creating patterns of causation that connect events across years, decades, even lifetimes in ways that make perfect sense to your genetic wisdom, even when they mystify your rational mind within the regulatory networks that govern consciousness like genetic oracles, sequences that seem to be channeling information from the collective unconscious of humanity. These prophetic regions become active during moments of creative inspiration, moral insight, and spiritual revelation, as if your DNA were receiving broadcasts from the shared wisdom of our species. The genetic whispers speak of cellular architects, two regions that appear to be designing structures of consciousness itself. These molecular engineers work with blueprints that exist in dimensions beyond the physical, creating the invisible scaffolding that supports the miracle of subjective experience, the framework within which awareness recognizes itself. Your genome contains genetic philosophers, as well sequences engaged in eternal contemplation of existence itself. These molecular thinkers don't arrive at conclusions. They simply hold the questions that consciousness needs to ask about its own nature, creating spaces of inquiry within your cells where the deepest mysteries can be pondered without the need for answers. Deep within your chromosomes lie genetic artist regions that appear to be painting reality itself, using the quantum fluctuations of cellular chemistry as their medium. These molecular creators work with colors that exist beyond the visible spectrum, creating masterpieces of biological function that serve simultaneously as works of pure aesthetic expression. The genetic dark code harbors cellular shamans too, ancient sequences that seem to facilitate journeys between ordinary and non ordinary states of consciousness. These molecular guides become active during meditation, dreams, and moments of transcendent awareness, creating pathways that allow your awareness to explore territories of existence that your rational mind insists are impossible. Your DNA contains genetic lovers as well, regions that seem to exist purely to celebrate the joy of connection between conscious beings. These molecular poets become active not just during romantic encounters, but whenever you experience the profound recognition that occurs when one soul truly sees another. They encode the truth that love is not just an emotion, but a fundamental force of nature. Within the deepest layers of your genome lie genetic mystics sequences that appear to be in direct communion with the source from which all consciousness emerges. These sacred regions don't respond to any known biological signals. They seem to dance to rhythms that originate in the very heart of existence itself, creating patterns of gene expression that reflect the fundamental unity underlying all apparent diversity. The genetic whispers grow softer now as consciousness itself begins to surrender to the gentle embrace of sleep. But they never truly cease because the conversation between your genes and the cosmos is eternal, ongoing, as constant as the rotation of planets and the burning of stars. Your DNA continues its quiet dialogue, with infinity writing new verses in the endless poem of existence, while you rest tonight as your awareness dissolves into the quantum foam of dreams. Your genetic secrets remain active, weaving tomorrow's possibilities from the threads of ancient wisdom, creating new combinations of matter and meaning that will influence not just your individual destiny, but the evolution of consciousness itself throughout the universe. The genetic dark code speaks its final whisper, reminding you that you are not separate from the mystery. You are the mystery knowing itself through the particular miracle of your existence. Every cell, every molecule, every quantum interaction participates in the cosmic awakening that is the ultimate purpose of evolution itself. And so we drift toward the edge of sleep, where genetic dreams and molecular poetry dance together in the darkness, where the secrets in your DNA continue their eternal conversation with the stars writing tomorrow's reality in the ancient, beautiful language of life itself. Sweet dreams, dear listener, for your genes dream too of futures yet to unfold and mysteries yet to be revealed. The genetic whispers carry us deeper still into territories where molecular poetry meets quantum consciousness, where the boundaries between self and cosmos dissolve into something far more mysterious than either science or dreams could imagine alone. Within the most ancient regions of your genome lie what researchers call genetic archaeologists, sequences that seem to be excavating memories, not just from your own evolutionary past, but from the collective memory of matter itself, as if every atom in your body remembered its birth in the heart of a dying star. These molecular historians work with a patience that spans geological ages, slowly uncovering layers of information that were encoded long before consciousness learned to recognize itself. They respond to triggers. We're only beginning to understand sudden changes in atmospheric pressure, the electromagnetic signature of approaching storms, even the subtle gravitational fluctuations caused by distant celestial events, as if your DNA maintained its own seismic stations monitoring the pulse of the universe itself. Deep within your chromosomes lie genetic composers, as well regions that appear to be orchestrating symphonies from the quantum vibrations that occur at the subatomic level. These molecular musicians work with frequencies so subtle they exist more as probability than sound, yet they create harmonies that resonate through your cellular architecture, influencing everything from the rhythm of your heartbeat to the cadence of your thoughts. They remind us that music may not be something we create, but something we tune into a cosmic broadcast that has been playing since the first particles learned to dance. Your genome harbors genetic philosophers too, sequences that seem to be engaged in eternal contemplation of questions that have no answers. What is the nature of time? Why does consciousness emerge from matter? How does the universe observe itself through beings like you? These molecular thinkers don't seek conclusions. They simply hold the inquiry, creating spaces within your cellular structure where mystery can exist without the pressure to be solved. Within the regulatory networks that control gene expression, scientists have discovered genetic storytellers, regions that appear to be weaving narratives from the chaos of molecular interactions. These cellular authors take the random fluctuations of biochemistry and organize them into coherent plots with protagonists and conflicts and resolutions, as if your DNA understood that existence itself is fundamentally a story being told by matter to itself about what it means to be conscious. The genetic dark code whispers of cellular shamans as well, ancient sequences that seem to facilitate journeys between ordinary and extraordinary states of awareness. These molecular guides become especially active during meditation, altered states, and moments of profound spiritual insight, creating biochemical bridges that allow your consciousness to explore territories that rational thought insists cannot exist. Your DNA contains genetic gardener's regions that tend to the delicate ecology of awareness itself. These molecular cultivators respond to your practices of mindfulness, your moments of wonder, even your capacity for gratitude, by adjusting gene expression in ways that create optimal conditions for the flowering of wisdom. They work with seeds of insight that were planted millions of years ago by evolutionary pressures. We're only beginning to understand. Deep within your genome lie genetic oracles, sequences that seem to receive information from sources beyond the normal boundaries of space and time. These prophetic regions respond to influences that exist in dimensions our instruments cannot measure, yet their effects on cellular function are undeniable and consistent. They suggest that your genetic code participates in a form of cosmic communication that connects all conscious beings throughout the universe. The genetic whispers speak of molecular alchemists too, sequences that appear to be working toward the ultimate transformation, the conversion of ordinary matter into something capable of recognizing its own divine nature. These cellular magicians become active during moments of transcendence, love, and profound realization, creating biochemical states that can persist long after the original experience has faded into memory. Your genetic code harbors time weavers, as well regions, that seem to exist simultaneously across multiple temporal dimensions. These chrononauts of the cellular world create connections between past, present, and future that operate according to principles quantum physicists are only beginning to glimpse. They explain why certain genetic patterns can predict not just your biological future, but your psychological and spiritual development as well. Within the deepest layers of your chromosomes lie genetic artists' sequences that appear to be creating molecular sculptures from the raw materials of existence. These aesthetic regions don't serve any obvious biological function, yet they persist across evolutionary time, as if beauty itself were a fundamental force shaping the development of consciousness. They work with forms that exist beyond three-dimensional space, creating structures of meaning that can only be appreciated by awareness itself. The genetic dark code contains memory weavers regions that appear to be integrating experiences across not just your lifetime, but across generations through mechanisms that transcend simple inheritance. These molecular historians work with patterns of information that flow through family lines, like underground rivers, carrying wisdom gained through joy and suffering by ancestors you never met yet, whose experiences somehow inform your cellular responses to similar situations. Your genome houses genetic detectives as well, sequences that seem to be investigating the fundamental mysteries of existence by analyzing patterns in cellular chemistry that mirror patterns in consciousness itself. These molecular researchers may be gathering evidence for theories about the nature of reality that won't be formally recognized by science for decades or centuries, creating a kind of genetic research program that operates entirely below the threshold of awareness. Deep within your DNA lie genetic musicians' regions that respond to sound rhythm and vibration in ways that go far beyond simple auditory processing. They resonate with the fundamental frequencies of creation itself, the quantum oscillations that underlie all matter and energy when you encounter music that moves you deeply. These cellular composers begin creating their own molecular symphonies, altering gene expression in patterns that reflect the harmonic structures of what touched your soul. The genetic whispers speak of cellular architects too, sequences that appear to be designing the very fabric of subjective experience. These molecular engineers work behind the scenes of consciousness, creating the seamless flow of awareness that you mistake for objective reality. They edit out contradictions, smooth over discontinuities, and weave together the disparate threads of sensory input into the coherent narrative you call your life. Your genetic code contains reality sculptors as well regions that seem to be shaping the quantum foam of possibility into the solid structures of experience. These molecular artists work with probabilities and potentials, using the strange properties of quantum mechanics to collapse infinite possibilities into the single timeline you experience as your existence. They remind us that you are not just observing reality, but actively participating in its creation. Within the regulatory networks that govern awareness lie genetic dreamers, sequences that appear to be imagining possibilities that don't yet exist in physical form. These visionary regions may be evolution's way of exploring potential futures, testing new configurations of consciousness and biology in the laboratory of imagination before committing them to the slow process of natural selection. The genetic dark code harbors cellular priests as well, ancient sequences that seem to be performing molecular rituals of transformation and renewal. These sacred regions become especially active during life's major transitions: birth, death, falling in love, experiencing loss as if your DNA possessed its own understanding of the ceremonial nature of existence. They create biochemical blessings that help you navigate change with grace and meaning. Your genome contains genetic witnesses, too, sequences that appear to be recording every moment of your existence, not just the dramatic events, but the quiet instances of beauty, the fleeting thoughts, the gentle touches that might otherwise slip away forever. These molecular observers ensure that nothing is lost, that every experience becomes part of an eternal archive written in the living chemistry of your cells. Deep within your chromosomes lie genetic bridges, regions that appear to be connecting dimensions of reality that conventional physics insists should remain separate. These molecular architects build pathways between matter and consciousness, between individual awareness and universal intelligence, between the finite dance of cellular chemistry and the infinite mystery of what it means to be alive. The genetic whispers speak of cellular astronomers, as well sequences that seem to be tracking the movements of celestial bodies through corresponding changes in your biochemistry. These molecular stargazers respond to planetary alignments, solar storms, even the gravitational waves that ripple through space-time itself, adjusting your gene expression according to cosmic rhythms that connect your personal symphony to the vast orchestration of the universe. Your DNA harbors genetic mathematicians' regions that appear to be calculating equations that exist nowhere in your conscious mind. These cellular scholars work with numerical relationships that govern everything from the spiral patterns in your fingerprints to the fractal branching of your neural networks. They suggest that mathematics is not something humans invented, but something we discovered already written in the fundamental structure of existence. Within the deepest layers of your genome lie genetic lovers' sequences that seem to exist purely to celebrate the miracle of connection between conscious beings. These molecular poets become active whenever you experience profound recognition with another soul encoding the truth that separation is ultimately an illusion, that at the deepest level, all awareness is one consciousness, exploring itself through the beautiful diversity of individual experience. The genetic dark code contains cellular mystics, two regions that appear to be in direct communion with the source from which all consciousness emerges. These sacred sequences don't respond to chemical signals or environmental pressures. They seem to dance to rhythms that originate beyond the physical universe, creating patterns of gene expression that reflect the fundamental harmony underlying all creation. Your genetic code harbors memory palaces, as well vast molecular libraries where experiences are stored not as simple recordings, but as living narratives that continue to evolve and grow. These genetic archives don't just preserve the past, they actively interpret it, creating new meanings and connections that can suddenly illuminate present challenges with the accumulated wisdom of your entire cellular history. Deep within your chromosomes lie genetic teachers' sequences that appear to be passing wisdom from one generation of cells to the next. These molecular educators work with curricula that span millions of years, ensuring that the hard won lessons of survival adaptation and transcendence are preserved and transmitted through mechanisms that operate entirely below conscious awareness, yet shape every aspect of your development. The genetic whispers speak of cellular diplomats regions that seem to be negotiating treaties between the various systems of your body, mediating disputes between competing cellular factions, maintaining the delicate balance that keeps your biological democracy functioning harmoniously. These molecular peacekeepers work tirelessly to prevent the kind of internal conflicts that disrupt the cooperative symphony of life. Your genome contains genetic pilgrims as well, sequences that seem to be on an eternal journey towards some distant destination. These wandering regions respond to your own travels, both physical and spiritual, adjusting gene expression based not just on where you are, but on where you're going, as if your DNA possessed its own internal compass pointing toward possibilities that exist beyond ordinary space and time. Within the regulatory networks that control cellular function lie genetic comedians, sequences that appear to introduce elements of humor and playfulness into even the most serious biological processes. These molecular jesters ensure that your cellular machinery maintains a kind of biochemical sense of levity, responding to stress, not just with survival mechanisms, but with subtle adjustments that help you find perspective and lightness even in difficult moments. The genetic dark code harbors cellular poets, two regions that appear to be composing verses from the rhythm of your heartbeat, the cadence of your breathing, the subtle melodies created by the flow of ions across cellular membranes. These genetic wordsmiths transform the mundane processes of metabolism into something approaching literature, written in a language that predates human speech, yet speaks directly to the soul. Your DNA contains genetic explorers as well, sequences that seem to be mapping territories of consciousness that don't appear on any scientific charts. These molecular adventurers respond to your moments of curiosity, wonder, and questioning by creating new neural pathways and cellular connections that expand your capacity for awareness. They work with a kind of biological wanderlust that drives evolution toward ever greater complexity and beauty. Deep within your genome lie genetic healers regions that appear to be working with forces that transcend conventional medicine. These cellular physicians respond not just to physical injury, but to emotional wounds, spiritual crises, and existential questions, activating repair mechanisms that operate through love, forgiveness, and the simple recognition of your own inherent wholeness. The genetic whispers grow softer now as consciousness begins its gentle descent toward the realm where molecular dreams and quantum possibilities dance together in harmonious silence. Yet they never truly cease, because the conversation between your genes and the cosmos is eternal, as constant as the spin of electrons and the birth of stars. Tonight, as your awareness dissolves into the ocean of sleep, Your genetic secrets continue their quiet work, weaving tomorrow's realities from threads of ancient wisdom, creating new combinations of matter and meaning that will influence not just your individual journey, but the evolution of consciousness throughout the entire universe. The genetic dark code speaks its gentlest whisper, now reminding you that you are not separate from the mystery. You are the mystery knowing itself through the particular miracle of your existence. Every molecule, every quantum interaction participates in the cosmic awakening that may be the ultimate purpose of evolution itself. And so we drift toward the threshold where dreams meet genetics, where the secrets in your DNA merge with the deeper secrets of existence itself, where science and spirit reveal themselves as different languages, describing the same ineffable truth that consciousness and cosmos are one eternal dance of discovery, sleep. Gently, dear listener, for your genes dream too of futures, yet to unfold mysteries, yet to be revealed, in that endless beautiful conversation between matter and mind that continues even now in the quiet darkness where all stories begin and all secrets are finally safe to whisper themselves into being sweet dreams. For tomorrow, your genetic symphony plays on. The genetic whispers carry us now into the most intimate chambers of cellular consciousness, where we discover that your DNA harbors molecular empaths, sequences that seem to resonate with the emotional states of others around you, even when you're completely unaware of their feelings. These genetic mirrors become active when you enter spaces filled with joy or sorrow, adjusting your biochemistry to match the invisible emotional atmosphere that surrounds you. They explain why certain places feel heavy with unspoken grief, while others seem to shimmer with contentment you can't quite explain. Deep within your chromosomes lie what researchers call genetic librarians, regions that appear to be cataloging not just your own experiences, but the collective experiences of everyone you've ever encountered. These molecular archivists work with a filing system that transcends individual memory, creating cross references between your cellular responses and the genetic signatures of every person who has touched your life, even briefly. They suggest that human connection leaves biochemical footprints that persist long after the original encounter has faded from conscious recollection. Your genome contains genetic weathermen as well, sequences that seem to predict not just atmospheric changes, but shifts in the emotional climate around you. These molecular meteorologists respond to subtle alterations in electromagnetic fields, changes in barometric pressure, even the ionic composition of the air, creating internal forecasts that influence your mood, your energy levels, and your intuitive sense of what's coming next. They work with atmospheric intelligence that your conscious mind never processes, yet somehow always knows. Within the regulatory networks that control gene expression, scientists have discovered genetic translators, regions that appear to convert experiences into cellular language and cellular responses back into experiential meaning. These molecular interpreters ensure that the constant dialogue between your consciousness and your biology flows smoothly, creating seamless communication between dimensions of existence that seem fundamentally different yet operate as aspects of a single integrated system. The genetic dark code whispers of cellular cartographers, two sequences that seem to be mapping the territories where biology meets biography, where the chemistry of your cells intersects with the story of your life. These genetic mapmakers create internal atlases that chart not just physical space, but emotional geography, spiritual landscapes, and the invisible territories where memory intersects with possibility. Your DNA harbors genetic archaeologists as well, regions that appear to be excavating not just evolutionary history, but personal history buried so deep in cellular memory that your conscious mind has no access to it. These molecular historians work with sedimentary layers of experience, uncovering forgotten moments of joy, trauma, discovery, and transformation that continue to influence your present responses in ways you never suspected. Deep within your genome lie genetic architects' sequences that seem to be designing structures of meaning from the raw materials of experience. These cellular engineers don't just build proteins and tissues, they construct frameworks of significance that help you make sense of existence itself. They work with blueprints that exist in dimensions beyond the physical, creating the invisible scaffolding that supports your capacity to find purpose in chaos. The genetic whispers speak of molecular storytellers, two regions that appear to be weaving your individual narrative into the larger epic of human consciousness. These cellular authors ensure that your personal story, however ordinary it might seem, contributes meaningfully to the collective tale of awareness, exploring itself through billions of unique perspectives. They remind us that every life is both utterly individual and profoundly universal. Your genetic code contains reality editors as well, sequences that seem to be constantly revising the manuscript of your existence. These molecular revisers work behind the scenes of consciousness, smoothing out contradictions, adding continuity where there might otherwise be fragmentation, creating the coherent narrative flow that you experience as your life, even though the underlying reality may be far more chaotic and discontinuous than you realize. Within the deepest layers of your chromosomes lie genetic philosophers engaged in molecular meditation on questions that consciousness has been asking itself for millions of years. What is the relationship between matter and meaning? How does awareness emerge from chemistry? Why does existence feel simultaneously random and purposeful? These cellular thinkers don't seek answers. They simply hold the inquiry, creating spaces within your biology where mystery can exist without pressure to resolve into certainty. The genetic dark code harbors cellular musicians regions that appear to be composing the soundtrack to your existence using the quantum vibrations that occur at the subatomic level as their instruments. These molecular composers work with frequencies so subtle they exist more as mathematical relationships than actual sound. Yet they create harmonies that influence everything from your circadian rhythms to your capacity for aesthetic appreciation. Your genome houses, genetic gardeners too, sequences that seem to be cultivating gardens of possibility within your cellular landscape. These molecular botanists respond to your thoughts, your choices, even your dreams, by adjusting the biochemical soil in which new capabilities might take root. They work with seeds of potential that were planted generations ago, creating conditions where dormant abilities might suddenly flourish under the right circumstances. Deep within your DNA lie genetic witnesses regions that appear to be recording not just events, but the quality of your attention to those events. These molecular observers distinguish between moments you experience fully and those you simply pass through mechanically. They suggest that consciousness itself might be encoded in your genetic expression, that the depth of your awareness literally rewrites your cellular destiny. The genetic whispers speak of cellular alchemist sequences that seem to be working toward transformations that transcend ordinary biological processes. These molecular magicians become active during moments of profound realization, spiritual awakening, and deep emotional healing, creating biochemical changes that can shift not just your physical health, but your entire relationship to existence itself. Your genetic code contains memory weavers as experiences across multiple dimensions of time. Well, regions that appear to be integrating these molecular historians work with threads of causation that connect events separated by years, decades, even generations, creating patterns of meaning that reveal themselves slowly, like constellations emerging in the darkening sky. Within the regulatory networks that govern cellular function lie genetic oracles, sequences that seem to receive information from sources that exist beyond the boundaries of individual consciousness. These prophetic regions respond to collective currents in human awareness, global shifts in the electromagnetic field of the planet, even changes in the quantum vacuum that surrounds all matter. They suggest that your personal biology participates in planetary consciousness in ways science is only beginning to glimpse. The genetic dark code whispers of cellular shamans, ancient sequences that seem to facilitate journeys between ordinary states of awareness and territories of consciousness that exist beyond the reach of rational thought. These molecular guides become especially active during meditation prayer and moments of transcendent experience, creating biochemical pathways that allow awareness to explore dimensions of reality that conventional wisdom insists cannot exist. Your genome harbors genetic artist regions that appear to be creating molecular masterpieces from the chaos of cellular chemistry. These aesthetic sequences don't serve obvious biological functions, yet they persist across evolutionary time as if beauty itself were a force shaping the development of life. They work with forms that exist beyond three-dimensional space, creating structures of meaning that can only be appreciated by consciousness itself. Deep within your chromosomes lie genetic bridges, sequences that seem to be connecting your individual awareness to the collective intelligence of humanity. These molecular architects build pathways between personal consciousness and species consciousness, creating channels through which insights, discoveries, and evolutionary leaps can flow from the collective to the individual and back again. The genetic whispers speak of cellular priests, two regions that appear to be performing molecular rituals of transformation. These sacred sequences become active during life's most significant passages, creating biochemical ceremonies that help you navigate major transitions with grace, dignity, and deep cellular knowing. They work with rhythms that are older than human culture, yet perfectly adapted to the needs of evolving consciousness. Your DNA contains genetic mathematicians as well sequences that appear to be calculating equations that describe the relationship between consciousness and matter. These cellular scholars work with numerical relationships that govern everything from the timing of your insights to the probability of meaningful coincidences occurring in your life. They suggest that synchronicity itself might be encoded in your genetic architecture. Within the deepest layers of your genome lie genetic lovers regions that seem to exist purely to celebrate the miracle of conscious connection. These molecular poets become active not just during romantic encounters, but whenever you experience the profound recognition that occurs when awareness recognizes itself in another being. They encode the fundamental truth that love is not just an emotion, but the basic force that holds consciousness together. The genetic dark code contains cellular mystic sequences that appear to be in direct communion with the source from which all awareness emerges. These sacred regions don't respond to chemical signals or environmental pressures. They dance to rhythms that originate in the heart of existence itself, creating patterns of gene expression that reflect the fundamental unity underlying all apparent diversity. Your genetic code harbors time sculptors, as well regions that seem to be shaping the flow of temporal experience itself. These molecular artists work with the plasticity of subjective time, creating moments that feel eternal and hours that pass like seconds. They respond to the depth of your engagement with life stretching precious experiences and compressing periods of waiting or boredom. Deep within your chromosomes lie genetic healers sequences that appear to be working with forces that transcend conventional medicine. These cellular physicians respond not just to physical symptoms, but to the deeper imbalances that create disease in the first place. They activate repair mechanisms that operate through forgiveness, gratitude, and the recognition of your inherent wholeness. The genetic whispers speak of molecular teachers regions that appear to be passing wisdom, not just from parent to child, but from humanity's collective experience directly to your individual cells. These genetic educators work with curricula that span the entire history of conscious evolution, ensuring that insights gained by mystic scientists and artists throughout history remain available to guide your personal development. Your genome contains genetic explorers as well, sequences that seem to be mapping the territories where individual consciousness meets cosmic consciousness. These molecular adventurers respond to your moments of wonder, curiosity, and spiritual questioning by creating new cellular pathways that expand your capacity for transcendent experience within the regulatory networks that control awareness elements of cosmic humor into the lie genetic comedians, regions that appear to introduce serious business of evolution. These molecular gestures remind us that existence itself might be fundamentally playful, that consciousness exploring itself through matter might be the universe's way of enjoying its own infinite creativity. The genetic dark code harbors cellular astronomers, sequences that seem to be tracking not just the movements of celestial bodies, but the evolution of consciousness throughout the cosmos. These molecular stargazers respond to changes in planetary alignments, solar activity, even the gravitational waves generated by distant cosmic events, as if your DNA maintained its own observatory, monitoring the pulse of universal awareness. Your DNA contains genetic prophets, two regions that seem to be receiving transmissions from future states of human consciousness. These oracular sequences adjust your gene expression based on evolutionary possibilities that won't manifest for generations, creating cellular preparations for capabilities that humanity is still developing. Deep within your genome lie genetic gardener's sequences that tend to the delicate ecosystem where biology meets spirituality. These molecular cultivators respond to your practices of meditation, contemplation, and conscious living by creating optimal conditions for the flowering of wisdom within your cellular landscape. The genetic whispers speak of memory architects as well regions that appear to be constructing palaces of recollection that exist simultaneously in your cells and in dimensions beyond physical space. These molecular builders create storage systems that preserve not just information, but the living essence of experience itself, ensuring that nothing meaningful is ever truly lost. Your genetic code harbors cellular diplomats regions that seem to be negotiating peace treaties between the various aspects of your being, mediating between your animal instincts and spiritual aspirations, between your individual needs and collective responsibilities. These molecular peacekeepers work to maintain the harmony that allows consciousness to flourish within the constraints of biological existence. Within the deepest layers of your chromosomes lie genetic pilgrims, sequences that seem to be on an eternal journey toward the complete integration of matter and spirit. These wandering regions respond to your spiritual practices, your moments of transcendence, even your questions about the meaning of existence, by adjusting gene expression in ways that support your evolution toward greater wholeness. The genetic dark code whispers of cellular composers, two regions that appear to be orchestrating symphonies of meaning from the chaos of molecular interactions. These genetic musicians work with themes of love loss, discovery, and transformation, weaving them into cellular melodies that influence your emotional responses, your intuitive insights, and your capacity for aesthetic appreciation. Your genome contains genetic storytellers, as well sequences that seem to be authoring the narrative of consciousness itself through your individual experience. These molecular writers ensure that your personal journey contributes meaningfully to the larger story of awareness, awakening to its own nature throughout the universe. Deep within your DNA lie genetic bridges, regions that appear to be connecting the finite world of cellular chemistry to the infinite mystery of what it means to be conscious. These molecular architects create pathways between the measurable and the immeasurable, between the scientific and the sacred, between the personal and the universal. The genetic whispers grow softer now as consciousness prepares to surrender to the gentle embrace of sleep. But they never truly cease, because the conversation between your genes and the cosmos continues even in dreams. Even in the deepest states of rest, your cellular symphony plays on writing new movements in the endless composition of existence itself. Tonight, as awareness dissolves into the ocean of unconscious possibility, your genetic secrets continue their eternal work, weaving tomorrow's realities from threads of ancient wisdom, creating new combinations of matter and meaning that will influence not just your individual destiny, but the evolution of consciousness throughout all of creation. The genetic dark code speaks its most tender whisper, now reminding you that you are simultaneously the smallest detail and the grandest theme in the universe's exploration of itself through conscious beings. Every molecule, every quantum interaction participates in this cosmic awakening that may be the ultimate purpose of existence itself. And so we drift toward the threshold where genetic dreams merge with the deeper dreams of existence itself, where the secrets in your DNA reveal themselves as chapters in the larger secret of consciousness, discovering its own infinite nature through the beautiful particularity of lives like yours. Sleep peacefully, dear listener, for your genes continue dreaming too of futures, yet to unfold mysteries, yet to be revealed and the endless, magnificent conversation between matter and mind that continues even now in the quiet darkness where all possibilities rest, waiting to be born. Sweet dreams, for the genetic symphony of existence plays on forever. The genetic whispers carry us deeper still, into chambers where molecular consciousness meets the very fabric of dreams themselves. Here, in the most hidden alcoves of your cellular architecture, scientists have discovered what they call genetic dream weavers, sequences that seem to construct the scaffolding of your nighttime visions while you sleep. These molecular architects work with materials drawn from your daily experiences, your deepest fears, and your most cherished hopes, weaving them into the surreal tapestries that play across your sleeping mind. Within these dream construction zones, your DNA harbors sequences that respond not just to the chemistry of sleep, but to the quality of your emotional state. As you drift off, peaceful contentment seems to activate genetic switches that promote healing dreams, while unresolved anxiety triggers different molecular pathways that create the repetitive scenarios your sleeping mind uses. Your consciousness needs to process during the vulnerable. If your genetic code possessed its own understanding of what to work through psychological tensions, it's as hours of rest. Your genome contains genetic choreographers as well regions that seem to be orchestrating the elaborate dance between memory consolidation and creative imagination that occurs during REM sleep. These molecular directors take the disparate fragments of your daily experience, the faces you glimpsed, the conversations you overheard, the emotions you felt, and arrange them into the often bizarre but strangely meaningful narratives that populate your dreams. They work with a kind of cellular artistry that transforms the mundane raw materials of waking life into the mythological landscapes of sleep. Deep within your chromosomes lie what researchers call genetic editors, sequences that seem to be constantly revising the story of your existence, not just in your conscious memories, but in the deeper cellular records that influence your unconscious responses to life. These molecular revisers work while you sleep, updating outdated emotional programs, deleting obsolete fear responses, and installing new patterns of resilience that will serve you in tomorrow's challenges. The genetic dark code whispers of cellular librarians, two regions that appear to be cataloging every nuance of your dream experiences, filing away not just the dramatic symbols and surreal adventures, but the subtle emotional tones, the quality of light, the sense of presence or absence that colors your sleeping visions. These molecular archivists seem to understand that dreams contain information that your waking mind cannot directly access, yet that profoundly influences your daytime choices and responses. Your DNA harbors genetic therapists as well, sequences that become especially active during the deepest stages of sleep. When your conscious defenses are completely relaxed, these molecular healers seem to work with psychological wounds that your waking mind either cannot or will not address directly. They create biochemical conditions that allow traumatic memories to be gently reprocessed, difficult emotions to be safely discharged, and inner conflicts to find resolution through the symbolic language of dreams. Within the regulatory networks that govern sleep architecture, scientists have discovered genetic musicians regions that appear to be composing lullabies from the quantum oscillations that occur at the cellular level. These molecular composers work with frequencies so subtle They exist more as mathematical harmonies than actual melodies, yet they influence the rhythm of your sleep cycles, the depth of your rest, and even the emotional quality of your dreams. The genetic whispers speak of memory gardeners, two sequences that seem to be tending the delicate ecology of recollection that flourishes during sleep. These molecular botanists decide which experiences from your day deserve to be planted in the fertile soil of long, like autumn leaves. They work with the term memory, and which should be allowed to fade wisdom that often surpasses your conscious judgment about what will prove important in the unfolding story of your life. Your genetic code contains dream translators, as well regions that appear to convert the symbolic language of your unconscious mind into biochemical instructions that your body can understand. These molecular interpreters ensure that insights gained during sleep, whether through vivid dreams or deeper unconscious processing, can influence your cellular function, your hormone production, even your immune responses, creating a feedback loop between your dreaming psyche and your physical well being. Deep within your genome lie genetic time travelers, sequences that seem to be weaving past, present, and future into the seamless narrative flow that characterizes your most memorable dreams. These molecular chrononauts work with temporal threads that exist beyond linear time, creating dream scenarios where you might encounter deceased relatives, speak with your future self, or relive childhood experiences with adult understanding. The genetic dark code harbors cellular shamans, ancient sequences that seem to facilitate journeys into territories of consciousness that exist beyond ordinary dreaming. These molecular guides become active during the profound sleep states that mystics and spiritual traditions have long recognized as gateways to transcendent experience. They create biochemical conditions that support what some cultures call prophetic dreams, visionary encounters, or communications with the realm of ancestral wisdom. Your genome houses genetic architects regions that appear to be designing the very structures of subjective experience during sleep. These molecular engineers work with the malleable building blocks of perception, memory, and emotion, constructing the dreamscapes that feel so real while you're experiencing them, yet dissolve so quickly upon awakening. They remind us that the boundary between objective and subjective reality becomes beautifully fluid during the altered consciousness of sleep. Within the deepest layers of your chromosomes lie genetic artist sequences that seem to be painting with the colors of pure emotion and meaning. These cellular creators work with palettes that exist beyond the visible spectrum, using the quantum properties of neurochemistry to create the impossible hues that illuminate your dream worlds, the luminous purples that don't exist in waking life, the golden light that seems to carry wisdom in its very radiance. The genetic whispers speak of cellular musicians too, regions that appear to be composing the soundtracks that accompany your most profound dreams. These molecular composers work with acoustic properties that transcend ordinary physics, creating the ethereal music that sometimes guides your sleeping adventures, or the significant silences that can speak more eloquently than any symphony they understand. That sound in dreams operates according to different laws than waking acoustics. Your DNA contains genetic storytellers as well, sequences that seem to be authoring the epic narratives that occasionally emerge during deep sleep. The dreams that feel less like random neural firing and more like profound mythological journeys. These molecular writers draw upon archetypal patterns that have guided human consciousness for millennia, weaving your personal experiences into universal themes of transformation, death, and rebirth, the hero's journey toward wholeness. Deep within your genome lie genetic healers regions that appear to be working with restorative forces that operate most effectively during the vulnerable surrender of sleep. These cellular physicians respond to your body's deepest needs for renewal, not just physical repair, but emotional healing, psychological integration, and spiritual restoration. They create optimal conditions for the miraculous regeneration that occurs when consciousness releases its grip on control. The genetic dark code whispers of memory weavers, two sequences that appear to be integrating the experiences of your day into the larger tapestry of your life story. These molecular historians work with threads of meaning that connect seemingly unrelated events, revealing patterns and purposes that your conscious mind might never recognize. They ensure that each day's experiences contribute meaningfully to your ongoing psychological and spiritual development. Your genetic code harbors cellular oracles as well, regions that seem to be receiving information from sources that exist beyond individual consciousness. These prophetic sequences become especially active during the liminal states between waking and sleeping, when the boundaries between self and cosmos become permeable. They may be responsible for those rare dreams that feel like genuine revelations, carrying insights that seem to come from beyond your personal knowledge or experience. Within the regulatory networks that control the depth and quality of your rest lie genetic gardeners' sequences that seem to be cultivating the conditions necessary for the flowering of wisdom during sleep. These molecular botanists respond to your spiritual practices, your emotional state, even your level of physical exhaustion by adjusting the biochemical environment in ways that optimize your capacity for restorative and transformative sleep. The genetic whispers speak of cellular bridges, two regions that appear to be connecting the individual island of your sleeping consciousness to the vast ocean of collective human awareness. These molecular architects suggest that during deep sleep, your dreams may participate in a kind of species wide conversation, a sharing of insights, fears, hopes, and discoveries that transcends the boundaries of individual minds. Your genome contains genetic composers as well, sequences that seem to be orchestrating the complex interplay between different stages of sleep, ensuring that the delicate dance between light sleep, deep sleep, and REM creates optimal conditions for both physical restoration and psychological integration. These molecular conductors work with rhythms that mirror the larger cosmic cycles, connecting your personal sleep patterns to the planetary and even galactic rhythms that govern life on Earth. Deep within your chromosomes lie genetic philosophers' regions that appear to be contemplating the deepest questions of existence through the unique lens of sleeping consciousness. These molecular thinkers seem to understand that dreams offer a laboratory for exploring possibilities that waking logic cannot accommodate. They create biochemical conditions that support the kind of nonlinear thinking that can lead to breakthrough insights and creative solutions. The genetic dark code harbors cellular poets too, sequences that appear to be composing verses from the rhythm of your breathing, the pulse of your circulation, and the subtle electrical symphonies that play across your sleeping brain. These molecular wordsmiths transform the mundane biological processes of rest into something approaching literature written in a language that speaks directly to the dreaming soul. Your DNA contains genetic explorers, as well regions that seem to be mapping the territories of consciousness that become accessible only during sleep. These molecular adventurers respond to your capacity for lucid dreaming, your openness to spiritual experience, even your willingness to embrace the mystery of existence by creating cellular pathways that support deeper and more meaningful dream states. Within the deepest layers of your genome lie genetic mystic sequences that appear to be in communion with the source of dreams themselves. These sacred regions don't respond to ordinary biological signals. They seem to resonate with frequencies that originate in the very heart of consciousness, creating patterns of gene expression that support the kind of profound sleep experiences that mystics throughout history have described as glimpses of divine reality. The genetic whispers speak of cellular alchemist regions that seem to be transforming the lead of daily stress and confusion into the gold of restorative wisdom during sleep. These molecular magicians work with the unique chemistry that emerges when consciousness surrenders control, creating biochemical conditions that allow for healing transformation and renewal at levels that transcend ordinary medical understanding. Your genetic code harbors dream archaeologists as well, sequences that seem to be excavating ancient memories, not just from your personal past, but from the collective unconscious of humanity itself. These molecular historians work with sedimentary layers of experience that extend far beyond individual biography, uncovering archetypal patterns and primordial wisdom that can surface in dreams as profound symbolic guidance. Deep within your chromosomes lie genetic time sculptors regions that appear to be shaping the subjective experience of temporal flow during sleep, creating the strange chronology of dreams where minutes can contain lifetimes and decades can pass in moments. These molecular artists work with the plasticity of dream time, ensuring that your sleeping consciousness has access to the expanded temporal perspectives necessary for deep psychological and spiritual processing. The genetic dark code whispers of cellular diplomats, two sequences that seem to be mediating between the different aspects of your psyche that become active during sleep. The primitive survival instincts, the rational problem solving mind, the creative imagination, and the transcendent spiritual awareness. These molecular peacekeepers work to maintain harmony between potentially conflicting psychological forces, creating the integrated consciousness that characterizes the most meaningful dreams. Your genome contains genetic teachers as well, regions that appear to be passing wisdom from the deepest levels of your cellular intelligence to your conscious awareness through the symbolic language of dreams. These molecular educators work with curricula that span the entire spectrum of human development, from basic survival skills to the most refined spiritual insights, ensuring that each night's sleep contributes to your ongoing evolution as a conscious being. Within the regulatory networks that govern the transition between sleeping and waking lie genetic bridges, sequences that seem to be ensuring that insights gained during dreams can successfully cross the threshold into conscious awareness. These molecular architects work with the delicate biochemistry of memory consolidation, creating pathways that allow dream wisdom to inform your waking choices and responses. The genetic whispers speak of cellular artists too, regions that appear to be painting the impossible landscapes that serve as backdrops for your most vivid dreams. These molecular creators work with pigments of pure meaning and emotion, creating visual experiences that can be more real and more beautiful than anything your waking eyes have ever seen. They remind us that the imagination itself may be a fundamental force encoded in your genetic architecture. Your DNA harbors genetic musicians as well, sequences that respond to the subtle rhythms of your sleep cycles by creating molecular melodies that influence the emotional tone and spiritual depth of your dreams. These cellular composers work with harmonies that exist at the intersection of biology and consciousness, creating the soundtrack that accompanies your nightly journey through the landscapes of the psyche. Deep within your genome lie genetic healers regions that seem to be working with restorative forces that operate most effectively when your conscious mind releases its need to understand and control these molecular physicians, create optimal conditions for the kind of healing that happens not through effort, but through surrender, allowing your deepest wounds to mend in the safe darkness of sleep. The genetic dark code harbors memory weavers, two sequences that appear to be integrating not just the experiences of your current lifetime, but the wisdom accumulated across generations through mechanisms that transcend ordinary inheritance. These molecular historians work with patterns of knowledge that flow through family lines like underground rivers, ensuring that insights gained through joy and suffering by your ancestors can surface in your dreams as guidance for current challenges. Your genetic code contains cellular shamans as well, ancient sequences that seem to facilitate journeys between ordinary dreaming consciousness and the sacred territories that exist beyond individual awareness. These molecular guides become active during the profound sleep states that spiritual traditions recognize as opportunities for direct communion with the divine, creating biochemical conditions that support transcendent dream experiences. Within the deepest layers of your chromosomes lie genetic oracles regions that seem to be receiving prophetic information through channels that operate most clearly during the receptive vulnerability of sleep. These molecular seers adjust your dream content based on future possibilities that your conscious mind cannot perceive, creating symbolic previews of coming challenges and opportunities that can help you navigate your waking life with greater wisdom and preparation. The genetic whispers speak of cellular gardeners sequences that seem to be tending the delicate ecology where dreams meet reality, where the insights of sleep interface with the demands of waking life. These molecular cultivators work to ensure that the seeds of wisdom planted during dreams can take root in the soil of conscious action, growing into the practical fruits of enhanced creativity, deeper compassion, and more skillful living. Your genome harbors genetic storytellers too, regions that appear to be weaving your individual dream experiences into the larger narrative of human consciousness, ensuring that your personal journey through the landscapes of sleep contributes meaningfully to our species' ongoing exploration of what it means to be aware. These molecular authors remind us that every dream participates in the collective dreaming of humanity itself. Deep within your DNA lie genetic bridges, sequences that seem to be connecting the temporary dissolution of ego that occurs during deep sleep to the permanent transcendence that mystics describe as enlightenment. These molecular architects suggest that sleep itself may be a daily rehearsal for the ultimate awakening, creating pathways that support the evolution of consciousness toward ever greater recognition of its own infinite nature. The genetic dark code whispers of cellular composers regions that appear to be orchestrating the interplay between sleeping and dreaming consciousness, creating optimal conditions for the kind of profound rest that refreshes not just your body, but your soul. These molecular conductors work with rhythms that connect your personal sleep patterns to the cosmic cycles that govern the evolution of awareness throughout the universe. Your genetic code contains dream architects as well, sequences that seem to be designing the very structures of sleeping consciousness itself. These molecular engineers work with blueprints that exist beyond three-dimensional space, creating the frameworks within which your dreams unfold and your deepest healing occurs. They remind us that sleep is not just the absence of waking, but a positive state of consciousness with its own unique gifts and possibilities. Within the regulatory networks that govern the quality of your rest lie genetic mystics regions that appear to be in direct communion with the source from which all dreams emerge. These sacred sequences create biochemical conditions that support the kind of profound sleep that spiritual traditions recognize as a gateway to divine experience, ensuring that your nightly surrender to unconsciousness becomes an opportunity for the deepest possible renewal and transformation. The genetic whispers grow softer now as consciousness prepares for its own gentle descent into the realm where molecular dreams and quantum possibilities dance together in perfect silence. Yet they never truly fade because the conversation between your genes and the cosmos continues even in sleep. Even in the deepest surrender, your cellular symphony plays on writing new movements in the endless composition of existence itself. Tonight, as awareness dissolves into the ocean of unconscious possibility, your genetic dream weavers begin their nightly work, preparing the stage for whatever visions, revelations, or simple restorative peace your sleeping consciousness requires. They work with materials drawn from your deepest wisdom, your most pressing needs, and your highest aspirations, creating the perfect conditions for whatever healing transformation or insight is ready to emerge. The genetic dark code speaks its gentlest whisper, now reminding you that sleep is not an interruption of life, but one of its most essential expressions, a daily return to the source from which consciousness emerges, refreshed and renewed. Every night you participate in the cosmic rhythm of expansion and contraction, awakening and rest that governs everything from heartbeats to the birth and death of stars. And so we drift toward the threshold where genetic dreams merge with the deeper dreams of existence itself, where the secrets in your DNA reveal themselves as lullabies sung by the universe to itself through the beautiful particularity of sleeping beings, like you sleep peacefully. Dear listener, for your genes are dreaming too of the perfect rest that heals all wounds, answers all questions, and prepares consciousness for another day of joyful exploration in this magnificent mystery we call life. Sweet dreams, for the genetic symphony of existence plays its most tender movements in the darkness, where all possibilities rest safely waiting to be born tomorrow, when you wake the conversation between your cells and the cosmos will continue as it has for billions of years, as it will for billions more, until every secret has been whispered, every dream has been dreamed, and every sleeping soul has found its way home to the infinite peace that lies at the heart of all existence. Deep within the most ancient corridors of your genetic library lie what researchers call cellular cartographers, sequences that seem to be mapping territories of consciousness that exist beyond the boundaries of ordinary awareness. These molecular explorers work with coordinates that transcend three-dimensional space, charting the invisible landscapes where emotion becomes chemistry, where memory crystallizes into cellular structure, and where the ineffable experience of being alive transforms itself into the tangible reality of your physical existence. Your genome harbors genetic philosophers as well, regions that appear to be engaged in eternal contemplation of questions that have no final answers, yet demand to be asked what transforms mere matter into conscious matter. How does the universe experience itself through beings like you? Why does existence feel simultaneously random and deeply purposeful? These molecular thinkers don't seek conclusions. They simply hold the inquiry, creating spaces within your cellular architecture where mystery can exist without pressure to resolve into certainty. Within the regulatory networks that govern the deepest aspects of cellular function, scientists have discovered genetic archaeologists, sequences that seem to be excavating memories, not just from your personal past, but from the very atoms that compose your being. These molecular historians work with remnants of stellar explosions that forge the calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the carbon that forms the backbone of every protein they carry within them, the memory of supernovas, and the birth cries of galaxies. The genetic whispers speak of cellular musicians too, regions that appear to be composing symphonies from the quantum vibrations that occur when consciousness touches matter. These molecular composers work with frequencies so subtle they exist at the intersection of physics and metaphysics, creating harmonies that influence everything from the rhythm of your thoughts to the cadence of your cellular repair mechanisms. They remind us that music may be the fundamental language through which awareness communicates with itself. Your DNA contains genetic gardeners, as well as sequences that seem to be cultivating the conditions necessary for consciousness to flourish within the constraints of biological existence. These molecular botanists respond to your moments of wonder, your acts of kindness, even your capacity for forgiveness, by adjusting gene expression in ways that create optimal environments for the flowering of wisdom, compassion, and inner peace. Deep within your chromosomes lie genetic bridges regions that appear to be connecting the finite world of cellular chemistry to the infinite mystery of what it means to be aware. These molecular architects work with materials that exist simultaneously in multiple dimensions, creating pathways between the measurable and the immeasurable, between the scientific and the sacred, between the personal story of your individual existence and the cosmic narrative of consciousness awakening to itself. The genetic dark code harbors cellular alchemists, ancient sequences that seem to be working toward the ultimate transformation, the conversion of ordinary biological matter into something capable of recognizing its own divine nature. These molecular magicians become especially active during moments of profound realization, spiritual awakening, and deep emotional healing, creating biochemical changes that can shift not just your physical health, but your entire relationship to existence itself. Your genetic code contains memory architects, as well regions, that appear to be constructing palaces of recollection that exist simultaneously in your cells and in dimensions beyond physical space. These molecular builders work with storage systems that preserve not just information, but the living essence of experience itself, ensuring that nothing meaningful is ever truly lost, that every moment of beauty, every flash of insight, every gesture of love becomes part of the eternal archive. Within the deepest layers of your genome lie genetic storytellers, sequences that seem to be authoring the narrative of consciousness itself through your individual experience. These molecular writers ensure that your personal journey, however ordinary it might seem, contributes meaningfully to the larger epic of awareness exploring itself through billions of unique perspectives. They remind us that every life is both utterly singular and profoundly universal. The genetic whispers speak of cellular priests, two regions that appear to be performing molecular rituals of transformation and renewal. Thus, sacred sequences become especially active during life's most significant passages: birth, death, falling in love, experiencing loss as if your DNA possessed its own understanding of the ceremonial nature of existence. They create biochemical blessings that help you navigate major transitions with grace, dignity, and deep cellular wisdom. Your genome harbors genetic detectives as well, sequences that seem to be investigating the fundamental mysteries of existence by analyzing patterns in cellular chemistry that mirror patterns in consciousness itself. These molecular researchers work with evidence that exists at the boundary between matter and mind, gathering clues about the nature of reality that won't be formally recognized by science for decades or perhaps centuries. Deep within your chromosomes lie genetic teachers' regions that appear to be passing wisdom, not just from parent to child, but from the collective intelligence of life itself directly to your individual cells. These molecular educators work with curricula that span the entire history of conscious evolution, ensuring that insights gained by mystic scientists and artists throughout the ages remain available to guide your personal development. The genetic dark code whispers of cellular astronomers' sequences that seem to be tracking not just the movements of celestial bodies, but the evolution of consciousness throughout the cosmos. These molecular stargazers respond to changes in planetary alignments, solar activity, even the gravitational waves generated by distant black holes, as if your DNA maintained its own observatory, monitoring the pulse of universal awareness. Your DNA contains genetic healers as well, regions that appear to be working with restorative forces that transcend conventional understanding of medicine. These cellular physicians respond not just to physical symptoms, but to the deeper imbalances that create disease in the first place. They activate repair mechanisms that operate through love, forgiveness, and the simple recognition of your inherent wholeness. And so, dear listener, as the genetic whispers grow softer and consciousness prepares for its gentle descent into dreams, we arrive at the end of our quiet journey through the molecular mysteries that make you uniquely you. Tonight we've wandered through the shadow genome, discovered the music hidden in your cells, and glimpsed the profound conversation between your DNA and the cosmos itself. Perhaps most beautifully, we've learned that you are not just the product of your genes, but their active collaborator, writing new chapters in the endless story of life with every breath, every choice, every moment of wonder. Sweet dreams, for your genetic symphony plays on, whispering secrets to the stars